is the Bloody Disgusting Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking rich white people problems. We're talking Zemeckis doing for bathtubs what Hitchcock did for showers. And we're talking Amber Valletta from Revenge. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And we're talking Michelle Pfeiffer, Wet a Lot.
Oh my gosh. For someone who doesn't enjoy being wet, this was not a good film for her.
I've started... we're talking Robert Zemeckis's... ! What Lies Beneath, everybody. I always forget that he directed this. You know, it doesn't seem like something he would do, and it just surprises me every time.
Oh, it's very true. I remember that he was doing this, and then I had to go back through his catalog to see if this was like an out-of-character direction for him, and it's actually not. He's done a bunch of different genre films, but...
Genre-ish.
Genre adjacent.
Yes. I mean, yeah. Go ahead. Tell us, which ones are genre adjacent, Joe?
I would probably say Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Oh my gosh. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is noir and also horrific in the end sequence.
Definitely gave me nightmares as a kid.
Oh, 100%. Doom was nightmare fuel for me. And then he also did Death Becomes Her, which to me feels like the oddest contribution to his filmography.
It is, but then when you take into account like the special effects in that film, it makes a lot of sense. And, I mean, we should point out that he is the director of the upcoming remake of Roald Dahl's The Witches.
Yeah, which in hindsight, I think that is a very good fit for him. Like, when I look at his other films that he's done, I'm like, okay, you know what? He's a very technical director. He likes to experiment with what the technology and what's flashy, what's new, what can he do behind the camera. And I think The Witches makes perfect sense in that regard.
Well, and he, like a lot of the horror directors that we've discussed before, he likes to keep the crew the same. I mean, you know, he's from the family of Steven Spielberg, but like a lot of the crew from this film, What Lies Beneath, are also working on The Witches.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
But what I like about What Lies Beneath is, honestly, so I saw this in theaters when in the summer of 2000, because this film is celebrating its 20th anniversary this week. It is, holy shit. But I saw this in theaters and I fucking loved it. I was 11 years old, and I'm a little surprised that I loved it because it's a slow burn movie, you know? But on the surface, you don't really see how much... like how many special effects are in this film or how much inventive camera work is in this film. And rewatching it, well, I watched it yesterday and I rewatched it again today with the commentary with Zemeckis and like two of the producers. So much work went into this movie. I mean, the budget's $100 million and it doesn't look like it at first glance, but when you really start to peel the layers back and think about what they were doing behind the camera, it really shows. Although I'm pretty sure Pfeiffer's and Ford's salaries were probably about half that budget.
Yeah, maybe just a little sizable cash dollars went their way. Yeah, I didn't realize that there were two different houses.
On each coast.
Like, hello, there is your $100 million.
No. So, okay, this film is not on Blu-ray yet, and I actually own the DVD of this, and it came with a cute little booklet on the production notes of the film. I was like, remember when that was a thing? Like, when it wasn't, you know, like an Arrow release or whatever, you know, like DVDs came with these little booklets?
I've got a couple. They're lovely.
Yeah, so, I mean, what I have is, so it's, I'll read it in my narrator voice. The location might have been perfect, but it was lacking one major element that was integral to the story, the Spencer's house, which is the center of the paranormal activity in the story. Production designers Rick Carter and Jim Teagarden collaborated with Bob Zemeckis in the design of the 3,500 square foot Nantucket-style shingled house, which was constructed from the ground up on the lake shore. Once the Vermont home was complete, Carter and Teagarden duplicated both the exterior and interior of the house in their entirety on sound stages in Los Angeles, which provided a controlled environment for shooting night scenes, as well as flexibility for the action and visual effects. And that's insane to me. Also, the fact that the house they built in Vermont had to be torn down after filming because it didn't meet, like, house codes for the area.
Yeah, so they literally just built it for this movie. And I couldn't help but think of the conversation that we had about the closed set in The Craft back in June.
Yeah.
Where we were like, wow, it's crazy that they built this bathroom. Like, they replicated this bathroom so that they could shoot in it in a controlled environment. And it's like, here comes What Lies Beneath with we built the entire house twice.
Yeah. Well, and there were 4 different versions of the bathroom as well.
Crazy. Which makes sense when you think about what he does in the quote-unquote climax. Because there's about 15 climaxes.
There are about 15 climaxes, but the actual climax is like 30 minutes long. And y'all, I'm going to say it outright. I fucking love this movie. And I think I was worried. It's one of those where I was worried, like, on a rewatch, is it gonna, like, not hold up for me? And for me, it, like, 99% did hold up. And I think the last 30 minutes are fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I had some of the same problems that I had back when I saw it in the theaters in 2000, which is just the sort of middle section it doesn't lag because there's always interesting things happening, but then when you get to the end of the film, it kind of feels like, oh, okay, so there was that part, and then it got its closure, and then we stopped talking about it, and then we moved on to this other thing. So I can definitely understand why people, particularly critics, were a little bit more harsh to this, because it feels like maybe there were places that they could tighten it. Although I would actually argue that a lot of this does pay off stuff. It's just not in the way that we're used to seeing.
You're right, and we'll probably utter this quite a bit in this episode, but there are a couple things in this film that the film makes you think are really, really important, but then they essentially come to nothing. And that's a complaint that we've lobbied against several films we've discussed in this podcast before. But because it's so intentional in trying to misdirect you from who the real villain in the film is, and arguably, because I know some people think it's really predictable who the villain in the film is. When this came out, I did not predict it. Granted, I was 11 years old, but I still think even watching it, and part of there's so many red herrings in the film, and that's kind of their purpose, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're meant to think that it's one thing, then you're meant to think, no, it's not that. It's actually something more supernatural, and then you're meant to realize, oh, actually, it's just toxic masculinity from 20 years ago.
And like gaslighting, and when especially when you know, sorry, y'all, spoilers, but Harrison Ford's the bad guy in this movie.
What?
It's actually really funny to watch this again, knowing he's the villain, because he's
an asshole.
He's an asshole.
All the way through. He is never nice.
Like, he's constantly making this woman feel crazy, like, all the time. He yells at her, he gets mad at her for stupid things, and not even the fact that he murdered this girl, but the fact that he did have an affair with her, and he knows that Michelle Pfeiffer found out about it, but then, like, he hid it from her, and, like, honestly, for me, if I'm in his precarious position, I would constantly be nice to Michelle Pfeiffer on the off chance she did remember what she saw.
Yeah, he got fucking lucky she went into that fugue state after the car accident.
I just imagine like she hit her head and she just got amnesia, like it's a soap opera.
More or less. I mean, I wasn't joking when I said off the top that this is rich white people problems, because this is some white people nonsense in this movie. But the fact that it plays like a glorified soap opera set in Vermont with beautiful clothes, like there's literally a reference to going antiquing in this movie. This shit. It is for suburban white people. Yeah.
Well, and we'd be remiss if we didn't say that this whole film is basically Zemeckis doing Hitchcock. And that was, in Roger Ebert's review, one of the complaints with the film is that, we have Zemeckis doing Hitchcock, but his mistake is that he introduces the supernatural, which is something Hitchcock never would have done. And I'm like, okay, so Ebert,
Ebert.
your issue with the film is the central premise.
Yeah. I can't wait until we do a De Palma film so that we can just be like, oh, look, it's the same complaint. It's De Palma doing Hitchcock. Like, yes, a lot of people do it.
So that was actually going to be my comparison. So to me, you can double feature this with Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill, because that's something that was lobbied against that film. Now, of course, now it's considered a masterpiece, but at the time it was like, oh, he's just ripping off Hitchcock. He's doing Psycho. And this film, it's pretty much the same thing. Honestly, most of the scares are pretty quote unquote generic horror thriller scares, but I think it's done with it's so intentional, you know? It's like, oh, we're gonna do like a traditional horror suspense thriller film, whatever the fuck you want to call it, a ghost movie. But it's just because it's so playful with its techniques that I like it. Whereas Dressed to Kill homage Psycho for the most part, this movie has got like fucking Vertigo, Rear Window, Psycho, Rope. Like it does all these movies, and it's just Zemeckis having a blast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my closest comparison would actually be The Invisible Man from earlier this year.
Ooh, yeah, I can see that.
I think just because it has a similar visual aesthetic, but it's also very much about a woman who's being haunted by her past. In this case, it's, you know, the actual person who's doing the haunting as opposed to, oh yes, my husband's late lover who just happens to look like about a 10-year younger version of me.
I love it, and yes, I love your reference to Revenge. That's also great because she's great in Revenge. She was also in Dead Silence, which we wrote about last year. But I have questions about the ghost and why she feels the need to drag things out so much.
I get the impression that maybe some of the things that Harrison Ford's character Norman was saying about Madison, maybe she's not the most together of women, so I got the impression that she was like, fine, I'm not going to let you kill your wife, but also I am going to dick around with you two a little bit.
That's kind of what it feels like, right? Like, I mean, you're supposed to sympathize with this poltergeist, essentially, and she's kind of a bitch, but she's also, like, obviously incredibly wronged and, you know, murdered.
Yeah. Just because people have affairs doesn't mean that they need to die a horrible, watery death.
Oh, but well, we'll get to that. I'm so excited to talk about this fucking bathtub sequence, but it's, you know, it's about 90 to 100 minutes into the film.
I was gonna say, I'll talk to you in 24 hours.
I know. So let me just kick things off then so we can just dive right into this. So, yeah, What Lies Beneath. So basically the way this got started, documentary filmmaker Sarah Kurnoshian had adapted a personal experience with the paranormal as a script treatment featuring a retirement age couple dealing with restless but compassionate spirits. DreamWorks commissioned a rewrite from, get this, actor-writer Clark Gregg.
Yep, that was a shocker.
Did you know that before this?
I knew it, and I'd completely forgotten it, so when it pops up in the credits, I definitely did a spit take.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. And everyone, if you don't know who that is, he's Agent Coulson from the Marvel movies, or, like, pretty much, like, that guy from almost every single movie ever made.
New Adventures of Old Christine.
There you go. He's the husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, this is like in the mid-90s. The script was later delivered to Steven Spielberg in 98, who then delivered it to Zemeckis. Zemeckis had just started a production company called Image Movers, and they basically signed a deal with DreamWorks, and they were like, hey, like, what kind of movies do you want to do? And Zemeckis was like, we want to do suspense. That's what we want to do. They went on and did things like, they did Castaway, which Zemeckis filmed this while Castaway was shut down, so Tom Hanks could grow his beard and lose a bunch of weight. But they would also go on to do, Zemeckis' like famed CGI films of the 2000s, like The Polar Express, Beowulf. And so they didn't really stick with the suspense aspect.
Excuse you. We are literally doing The Polar Express as one of our Christmas films this year because that is the scariest fucking movie. Those dead-eyed children. Oh.
Shoot me in the face. I think it's Josh Hutcherson too, though, so I wouldn't be opposed.
I don't know. A dead-eyed CGI Josh Hutcherson? No, thank you.
I mean, also a baby Josh Hutcherson, so it really wouldn't like get my rocks off in the same way as it would now.
One would hope not, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so their first choices for the film were Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer. They got them. I'm sure they got lots of money for it.
She got 2 houses.
Yeah, they probably got that. When they tore down the house in Vermont, it probably just got delivered to Michelle Pfeiffer's doorstep.
Right? Where do you want it?
Just in my veranda. Because it will fit under her tall veranda. What's a veranda? I don't really know what that is, to be honest. It sounds like a rich people word. Anyway, so What Lies Beneath gets released in theaters July 21st, 2000. Again, budget of $100 million with a runtime of 130 minutes. It opens in the number 1 spot with $29.7 million and goes on to gross $155.5 million domestically.
Yeah, it did well.
Really well. And it's interesting, right? Because it's a horror film that is made for old people, but it still has enough thrills for young people. I mean, again, my young self fucking loved this movie.
Oh, I think it was probably built into the film from its inception, but this is very much one of those kind of 4-quadrant summer films where we're going to get people with the star power. We're going to get them with the genre. We're going to get them with the fact that it's kind of classy. It's like you could bring your elderly mother to it, but also teenagers are going to get something off of it because there's a bunch of like dead people and scares.
The interesting thing though is, did you watch the trailer for this film before, like at some point in preparation for this?
I just remember the iconic line, which I will not do now. I will perform later.
Okay, well, the whole marketing was built around Ford's character's affair, which is interesting considering that doesn't make an appearance until about halfway through the film.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have that red herring
complained.
with the viewers. I mean, the tagline is literally, he was the perfect husband until his one mistake followed them home. The clip in the end, or I guess halfway through, when Pfeiffer goes, you had an affair with a girl who killed herself, that's in the trailer for this movie.
And then people wonder why I come down hard on the marketing. It's because it fucks things up.
Like, you can market this easily as a ghost movie without making it like, oh, it's hair, especially at least knowing, like, again, the whole 30-minute red herring with the viewers.
Absolutely. Like, I would be building my entire marketing on that first act where it's like, is she seeing what she thinks she's seeing, or is she going a little bit crazy because of empty nest syndrome?
Yeah, exactly. Which really would have played into Vertigo a little bit more, but I digress. It does make $136 million internationally for a worldwide gross of $291.5 million. Reviews, and as you said, critics came down hard on this at the time. I was shocked because I always thought this was considered like a classic, like one of the best films ever made, blah, blah, blah. We're looking at a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 5.51 out of 10 and then a Letterboxd score of 6 out of 10. I'm a little perplexed by that, to be honest. A lot of critics came down on the script, saying that the script wasn't smart enough for all the talent involved.
Which is such a ridiculous thing to say. Like, do they think that people write scripts after actors get cast? Because that's usually not how it works.
And the script had gone through some changes, but honestly, and here's what I think that they saw it's Clark Gregg. Oh, he's an actor that's trying his hand at screenwriting, and that was an easy mark.
No, I think it was, you've got Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford, and this is the best you can do with them? You're going to put them in some schlocky supernatural drama?
Maybe. I mean, that's true. I mean, yeah, that's probably right.
Which is hilarious, because when you look at what... If you follow what Harrison Ford went on to do in the 2000s, he made a bunch of shit movies.
He did, but on the bright side though, like at the time this movie came out, this was only the second time he'd ever played a villain. The first was in fucking American Graffiti. So the casting for this is perfect, and it's kind of one of those things like with Scream 4. Sorry, I'm going to spoil this, y'all. I've always said, when Emma Roberts is revealed as the killer in Scream 4, it was a fucking shock because she was a Nickelodeon baby, she did Family Fare, and then she's the killer in Scream 4. After that, she gets typecast as a bitch villain role, and so now if you show someone Scream 4, they immediately peg Roberts as the villain because they're used to seeing her as the villain. It's not exactly the case with Ford today still, like it's a bit like apples and oranges, but you're not walking into this thinking Ford is going to be the villain. He's Indiana Jones. He's the good guy.
Yeah, they're definitely playing off of the likability of both leads. And particularly when this film opens, these two look like they're madly in love. Like they're out fucking the neighbors.
Well, and that's something where, like, okay, even we'll debate the necessity of the Fuhrer subplot, but the way that things unfold in the film, the way that things are revealed about their history, I think is mostly like really well paced. So that way, when you start to get a little bored, the film like drops another tidbit of information on you to where you're like, oh, I'm back in now. Like this is changing, like totally like shifting the direction of the story.
Yeah, and just like you said, if you are watching this with the knowledge that Harrison Ford is the bad guy, there is literally never a moment where you actually think he's a good person, because every single interaction that he has with Michelle Pfeiffer, apart from, I would say, maybe the opening scene,
right,
is him disparaging her, him dismissing her, him making her feel like garbage in front of their friends. Like,
well, and because you can see the gears working in his head, like, oh, I have to keep this lie going. And so it's actually it gets borderline comical towards the end, again, when you know he's the killer, as she starts to figure stuff out more, and then his his story keeps changing a little bit, and his lies get more.
He's got like 18 different versions of his fucking story.
And it's kind of funny to watch him unravel, but he holds it together until, again, just at the very, very end. So yeah, I mean, I think this is great. I don't really have much more on the production side, so...
No, we'll talk about stuff as we go, I think.
Yeah, let's just go into this.
All right. So Claire Spencer, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, she starts her day with a near electrocution in the bathroom and some passive judging with her husband Norman, Harrison Ford, as they survey their new neighbors, the Feuers, fighting in their front yard. So after dropping off their daughter Cyndi Lauper, Caitlin...
Did she look like Cyndi Lauper?
I kind of think she does.
I don't know what
Cyndi
Cyndi Lauper looks
because
like.
she's literally in 2 scenes in this entire movie.
Yeah, that's another thing where it's like, I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, I wonder what the daughter thinks about her dad being a fucking murderer.
Mm-hmm. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Because she's off to college, and we will not see her again for the rest of the movie.
Even the one time Michelle Pfeiffer calls her, like, she's not there to answer the phone. She has to leave her a message with her roommate.
Yeah, there's an alternative cut of this movie that's just all Caitlin off at university getting desperate, crazier phone calls from her mother being like, I saw something in the bathtub. Okay, Mom, I'm doing a keg party. Bye.
Because, I mean, this comes out in 2000. Like, we're kind of at that transition from, like, you know, landlines to cell phones. Because this movie employs both of those things.
Oh my God, I love the cell phone in this movie.
The cell phone's great. But, like, you make this movie today and it's an entirely different concept. Because, yeah, like, the daughter would have to be a part of this.
Yeah, the daughter would come back and she would get murdered.
The ghost would kill her.
Oh, she and Jodie would be ripe for the picking. I'm very surprised that more bodies do not drop in this film.
But that's why it's so classy, Joe.
So classy. It's for older people.
It's not some schlock slasher film, Jesus.
God, get your shit together. So, yeah, Caitlin is off at college, and basically everybody is worried that Claire is going to go a little bit mad, because what is she going to do to fill the gap in her life if you don't have a child? And she doesn't seem to have any hobbies.
Well,
what the hell is she going to do in this house in Vermont?
At the moment, this is all we know about her, too. All we know is that they're a happy family, and her kid's gone away. Like, we don't know anything about her past yet. And so we're just going off of this. It's okay.
I couldn't help but picture that SNL skit where it's like for the mom genes. She's not a woman. She's a mom.
That's true.
Yes. Okay. So one day, while she's looking through a photo album that might as well be labeled exposition, we see a little bit of backstory. So we learn about Norman's famous dead father. And we also catch wind that there was a car accident, and it leaves Claire very shaken. She has to run outside and get a little bit of fresh air.
Yeah, she gets really upset about that because amnesia!
Amnesia! I don't understand why I'm crying, but I am.
Yes. Also, I'm sorry, I wanted to point out too earlier, because we get like 2 pseudo-sex scenes between Ford and Pfeiffer. I did appreciate the frank... I mean, this is a PG-13 film, you know, it's not rated R, so they can't really get graphic with it. But I did appreciate the frankness with which this married couple discusses sex, like when they're just kind of sitting there and he goes, wanna fool around? And then he just goes to town on her pussy.
Yeah. A little bit implied cunnilingus. We're not in Outlander territory or anything.
No. But I mean, like, you know, young me did not know what was happening.
No. Is he inspecting her ankle? Did she drop something? Yeah, I do like the fact that they are presented as a sexually active older couple, because guess what, folks? Older people do fuck.
It's normalizing it, which I really appreciate. And again, for the year 2000, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of our first red herring, because you think that their marriage is fine, because they're fucking going to town all the time.
But it's also because he's a horny asshole.
Yeah, as we're going to learn later, he can't keep his dick in his pants.
That's all he does, is he just fucks things.
Or experiments with paralytic drugs, yes.
Yep, that's exactly... Oh, dude, the Chekhov's paralytic drug, which I like when they introduced it, I had like completely forgotten about that, even being in this movie, and I was like, oh wow, that's gonna come back later.
Yeah. Why else does Claire need to go to that lab? We'll get there. Okay, so while she's outside recovering from the trauma of not remembering the car accident, she notices that there is a woman on the other side of the fence crying, so she tries to befriend Miss Fuhr, who, at this point, we don't know it, but is played by Miranda Otto.
Yeah.
To which I was like, Miranda fucking Otto is in this movie?
It's
Completely
nuts. I mean, again,
spaced.
her husband is played by James Remar, aka Dexter's dad, and,
Yep.
also that guy in a bunch of things that you've already seen. But
with some tragic 2000s hair.
yeah, it's really bad. It's also the first of many times Michelle Pfeiffer will cut herself on something. Specifically this fence.
Yeah, like, not once, but twice. And I, again, was like, is that a thing? I can't remember. Is her cutting herself by accident just something? And it kind of is.
It's not really a thing. Like, it just is. She cuts herself on the fence, I think, twice, and then she steps on glass later. Like, she just keeps hurting herself. So it's almost, like, it is, again, it comes to nothing. It's just a thing that happens. But let's talk about this Fjord scene, because her reaction to this woman is completely normal, because this woman is sounding like, Miranda Otto is sounding like she is, like, fucking just been beaten within an inch of her life.
Oh yeah, she's talking about how scared she is of her husband. When he drives back, she immediately runs into the house like she's afraid of being caught outside. And of course, when Claire relays this to Norman, he's immediately like, "Oh, I'm sure it's fine. Don't worry about it."
Dang it, fuck.
He promises to phone a friend who will vouch for this guy. And I was just like, the cycle. Men protecting men. How novel.
And I can see someone watching this too, because we also get that really cheap eye in the fence hole jump scare in this moment. And we get a lot of things like that in this movie. I think there are 2 stellar jump scares overall, but this one is one of those kind of like, we're just going through the motions here. But
yes.
Listening to the commentary with Zemeckis today, it was, again, it's just like one of those, in a movie like this, you have to play with your audience, so we're just teasing them. I mean, you do scares like this, and blah, blah, blah. And so, I think, and it kind of comes across as like, well, you don't really know horror, but it's also like, I don't feel like maybe, it does, it's like he felt obligated to do the standard stuff, while... Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I defend it saying like it's intentional because he's trying to make a traditional quote unquote suspense film, but I can see how someone would watch this and say that's pretty generic and like really predictable.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear different directors talk about their level of interest and or engagement with the horror genre. Like we talked about this just a couple weeks ago with I Know What You Did Last Summer, where it's like, oh, guess I've got this obligation to put in a scare because that's the movie I'm making. You're like, right. Yes, sir, it is.
Well, but he's like, oh, you have to do something like this. I'm like, well, no, you don't. You can do something similar, but like make it different so it like is good. But yeah, I mean, like the fence eye hole scare is one of my least favorite tropes in horror movies.
Yeah, it's not great, but it is a classic.
It is. Or the keyhole,
Yeah, of course. So Norman is not at all receptive to Claire's theories, but thankfully she does have a cougarific friend, Jody, played by Diana Scarwid.
Oh my God.
She is fun. She is flirty. She is also there to deliver exposition about how Claire is really tender at the moment. She
is. And also, like, when you think about the fact that Claire got in a car wreck and then Diana Scarwid shows up to, like, show off her new car, it's like, it's a bit insensitive, Diana.
Bitch, read the room.
For some reason, I always think it's Stockard Channing in this role because she just looks like Stockard Channing to me. Listeners, Diana Scarwid is, of course, known mostly for being the teenage daughter in Mommy Dearest, a famed queer camp classic Mommy Dearest, or the nun in Psycho 3.
Okay. I have seen one, but not the other.
I know. We'll get to Psycho 3 one day. But yeah, she's great, and I love her character in this film. I wish she was in it more.
Yeah, she's really good. She really only has a couple of scenes, but when she shows up, she's doing everything that you need that character to do. Yeah, I mean, it adds a necessary amount of levity. Like even in the seance scene, which we'll get to in a minute. Well, sorry, I'll stop. We'll get there. Yeah. Okay, so that night, Claire sees Mr. Fuhrer carrying a body-sized bag out to his car in the rain. Which is, again, like you're watching this as somebody who consumes this kind of media fairly frequently. You're just like, check mark. Okay, we've got another score on the bingo tab here. And this is the movie you think you're getting, right? Okay, yeah, so exactly. He's going to kill his wife. The ghost is going to try to help her so she can solve the murder. Honestly, I was like, oh, I'm missing Amy Adams doing this in Woman in the Window. Oh my God. Yes, that would have been good double programming with this. Ugh, God damn it. Where are classy leading ladies who are probably drinking too much white wine and seeing things? Chardonnay, always Chardonnay. I mean, mean, I'm drinking a blush right now.
Of course
just in
you
honor
are.
of this movie.
Because you are a rich white lady.
Oh, God, the jewels. You should see me right now. Okay, so she sees Fuhrer doing some very suspicious activity in the middle of the night, and then when she goes to investigate, she doesn't really see anything except for a shoe with a single drop of blood. So when she returns home, she notices that the front door is open, and this will continue to happen throughout the course of the film at inopportune moments.
It opens as she reaches for it. Like, it's not already open.
Okay, thank you for that correction, semantics, Professor.
I'm just saying, if you've never seen this movie, it's a really key piece.
Right.
It's vital to understanding the film.
Yes, this one time. All the other times where she discovers it and it's already open, completely different situation.
No, every single time she reaches for the knob and then it opens up. Joe, use your eyes.
My God. So, on top of that, we've also got an unusual encounter down at the dock when she tries to get the family dog Cooper, who does not die, should be clarified.
Does not die, but he is used in a really kind of, a real twist of the knife at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm. But for now, he's just afraid of the water.
Yes.
And of course, that makes sense because we get a glimpse of a body floating underneath the surface, but Claire is not fully certain that's what she sees.
And that is a practical effect. It's not CGI. And again, we're in the early-ish stages of halfway decent CGI here.
Yeah, I think it mostly looks fine.
No, it does. I mean, it's either actually Amber Valletta in that lake, or it's a cast of Amber Valletta in that lake.
I mean, this is a thankless role for her. It's basically look hot and be underwater.
Well, this is her film debut. Like, she was a model before this, and they were clearly looking for someone with Michelle Pfeiffer's bone structure so that the iconic scene later in the film would work.
Dee Dee's just over in the corner being like, "Fuck you, asshole!"
I mean, even the photo whenever Pfeiffer goes to visit her mom, and like on the commentary, they're talking about how they had to get Valletta to pose in a certain way and make a certain facial expression, like, I guess to match Pfeiffer or something. It was really bizarre.
No, I mean, the resemblance is quite good, all things considered.
Oh, yeah. I mean, trust me, when we get to the scene, I have something to say.
Okay, so all of this rightly freaks Claire out, so she goes to the lab. This is where we hear Chekhov's paralytic sedative, and Norman takes her home. He explains that he did talk to this male colleague, and this person vouched for Mr. Fuhrer. He couldn't hurt a flea. So clearly, she's an idiot, and...
You're so stupid.
God, this bitch is dumb. And then she turns it around and she's like, well, let's talk about how sensitive you are whenever I bring up your father. And he's like, why don't you shut it down, bitch?
This is the moment. This is the moment where you see the psychosis in this character, is because she says, you always overreact to things like that. And he looks at her and he pauses.
And then he overreacts.
He kind of smiles and he goes, I guess I'll have to watch that then, won't I? And like, again, the first time watching this, you're like, oh, he's being kind of funny. And then watching it again, you're like, oh, he is holding back like a fucking punch to her face right now.
Well, and also he's taking notes like, oh, okay, I can't do this because she's going to start suspecting something.
Yes.
Yeah, so he is basically, I have to stop using the word crazy because it's actually not appropriate anymore, but he has daddy issues. And that is one of the big plot points in this film. I
do, I say I wish we would get more of a backstory for him, but I almost think the film works better that we don't.
Yeah, I don't need it. I feel like I know everything about Norman that I need to know.
Oh, also Psycho reference. His name is Norman.
Yes. I didn't get that until I started to read through all the connections, and I was like, oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, because, the beginning of the movie is very Rear Window with her spying on the neighbor, blah, blah, blah. The gaslighting's, I believe, reminiscent of Vertigo. Psycho is really at the end of the movie.
I think I just needed something a little bit more subtle, like maybe if their last name was Loomis or something.
Or Crane.
Or Crane, yeah.
Let's do that.
See, so many choice picks.
Claire Crane, I see
Spencer. It. So, the next day, we've got more open doors. We've got picture frames that keep falling, and Claire is on a mission. She's going to deliver this goddamn welcome basket to the Fuhrers so that she can peek inside them windows. And she surveys a bloody shoe on the porch, an overturned chair, and a plastic tarp in the living room.
Yeah.
But nothing suspicious is happening here.
And this is actually, again, this is a classic scare. It's not a typical scare, but it's like she's going down this, enormous patio that wraps around the house, because of course it does.
And a veranda?
Oh my god, that's what a veranda is! No, but she turns and the car's there. We don't get a singer music cue. We don't get like anything except just her gasp, and then we cut to the car. It's a scare, but it's not a jump scare. It's just like, oh shit, like he is there, and where the fuck is he?
And she is caught. Yeah. So she more or less covers her tracks, but he does not look particularly convinced. So she becomes engrossed spying on him, and he acts a little bit unusual by throwing her basket away very viciously.
I love this. So, okay, we haven't really talked about it. Like, Michelle Pfeiffer is fucking great in this movie because she's so good. Yeah. So much eye acting. But yeah, I love when she sees him throw away the flowers, and she just makes this like...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're looking for a cue of like how a white lady living in a bougie neighborhood would react, like, he threw away that basket, that bastard.
It feels very Desperate Housewives, right?
Very like Brie Vandekamp in this.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my god. Let's get Marcia Cross in here to do the remake.
I would die.
She's probably too old at this point, but I said it. I'm moving on. Okay.
That's fine.
So she's so engrossed in spying on him that she's nearly late for dinner with family friend Stan, played by Ray Baker, and his new girlfriend Elena, played by Wendy Crewson. I
loved this bit of casting, though, because Wendy Crewson played the first Harrison Ford's wife in Air Force One.
Yeah, and that was, 3 years before this?
I think it might have been 99, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't.
Cool.
It was the late 90s, for sure, but it was
there
close.
We go. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe that's how she got the job.
It might be. I mean, she'd also worked with Pfeiffer on To Jillian on her 37th birthday, which I've never seen, but it's there.
Yeah, it's a movie that Michelle Pfeiffer's made.
Sure.
So this is an important conversation because this is
exposition.
Where we get, it's a bit more background, particularly for Claire this time. So we learned that she gave up her career in the Philharmonic so that she could marry Norman. I believe we may get a reference that I think this is the point where we learn that Norman wasn't her first husband either.
Yes, it is. And see, I thought that's also with the photo album part earlier. Like, I knew that the car was there, but I also thought maybe there was a picture of her dead husband that obviously didn't say, this is my ex-husband, my dead husband. But, like, I thought that was also why she started, like, crying, was because she was, like, seeing memories of her husband. And
there's definitely more in there for sure. And also I love the idea of marking a photo in a family album that just says dead husband on the back.
This guy's dead.
Like, Mommy, who is that? Flip it over. Oh yes, that's my dead first husband.
Okay, and so I am unclear on the timeline here. Is the daughter, is it Harrison Ford's daughter, or is it the first husband's daughter?
So I say it's the first husband, because there's a mention, I think, a little bit later when they're doing their tit-a-tat later. Mm-hmm. And Norman talks about how close she is to, what's her name? Fucking Cyndi Lauper. Caitlin.
Cyndi Lauper.
You know, Claire, you're just really close to Cyndi Lauper right now.
Does she have a mole? Is that what it is?
I think it's the hair.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
But he talks about how close Michelle Pfeiffer is to the daughter, and then she screams at one point, like, I gave up everything for you. I gave up my career for you. And he was like, I never asked you to. You were, going around Europe with a baby on your hip. So it kind of makes it sound like he rescued her from this life of having to play music and raise a child. So
what I'm gathering is that the first husband died relatively early on, like in Caitlin's marriage, because I think we're to believe that, Harrison Ford and her have been married for at least 15 years.
Yes, they've been together for quite some time.
Yeah. Okay.
So we get all that. I love the way that this is directed, but also acted, because there's crosstalk between the men are sitting diagonal and the women are diagonal, and they're like just talking over each other, and that is so authentic to me. I've had so many dinner conversations like that.
I have too, and I will tell you right now, and I'm going to date us by mentioning COVID, but it made me really, really miss being in a half-empty restaurant with another couple friend and glasses of red wine and just gossiping and drinking.
Yeah, you're just 8 bottles deep. You're probably talking way louder than you think you are, leaning in and just having a great time.
Yeah, but I was getting stressed out, though, with the crosstalk, because I was like, if y'all would just switch seats, you could talk at a normal volume.
It doesn't work that way.
I know.
The conversation has to be organic.
Mm-hmm.
This is, again, when the conversation shifts to Norman and his father, because we find out that the reason they moved to Vermont is because Norman took over his father's DuPont chair. Mm-hmm. And when that comes up, Norman just immediately, like, this, it's so masterful. He immediately switches it so that he's talking about how Claire is this stupid idiot who's imagining things happening in the house.
No, and again, when you know that he's the killer, and that's like it's kind of brilliant, right? Because it's just like, mm-hmm. Oh, of course, he's a fucking asshole.
He's so manipulative, and you can just see it on Michelle Pfeiffer's face. She just wears it like, I can't believe you're doing this to me right now.
No, because she doesn't say anything. Like, she doesn't say like, really, like, I mean, maybe she does something like that, but like, no, it's because her face just like sinks. I wrote in my notes, douche move, bro.
Oh, it's awful. Like, it as a villain, masterful. As a husband, piece of shit.
I mean, I don't throw around the word nuanced a lot because I don't always think I use it properly, but both of these performances, especially Ford's, feel very nuanced, at least until, all is revealed.
Yeah, until he breaks out the mustache and begins swirling it a little.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so it's time for Claire to discover a key in the vent of Norman's office. And put that into your literal pocket, because we won't raise it again for about another hour. Yes. Also,
in the timeline of the film, though, this is, Amber Valletta coming with the box, and I guess maybe she dropped it. Because, we don't really get a flashback, and I do like that. I don't need a flashback of Harrison Ford, beating her and drowning her.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming, he probably hit her, or when he knocked her out, like, the key fell out of her hand and, like, went into the vent or something.
Yeah, probably something along those lines. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, Claire also sees our first image of a completely full bathtub that's full of water. Mm-hmm. And she freaks out because she sees yet another ghostly image in the water.
Great scare, by the way. And this one is accompanied with a really intense music cue, but I fucking love it.
Yeah, we got a good sting here, which is good because this is kind of like, okay, she's not, well, maybe she's imagining things, but in her mind, she's gotten concrete proof that something really bizarre is happening. It's not just an open door. It's not just a weird feeling in the water. It's like, I saw a literal fucking woman in this bathtub.
And then we get some good comedy a bit with the editing, because this happens, she goes to tell Norman, and then it's like cut to therapy.
Yeah, immediately trip to the shrink. So we've got Dr. Drayton, who will appear only twice in this movie. Very sad, because
Mr.
I love
Olivia Pope.
Joe Morton.
Yeah. I actually wish that these scenes would have gone on for longer. I really enjoy watching therapy, and I feel like a lot of times in film, therapy is made fun of a lot, and therapists in particular are made to look very condescending. I like that we don't get that in this film. I like that Joe Morton's therapist is very much with her in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an exposition piece, because we're trying to, chip away at the fact that, hey, your marriage is actually not that happy, and hey, you are suffering from some pretty severe trauma that you have repressed, but it's handled in a very non-condescending way. Like, he's very upfront with her. He's quite charming. I like when he offers her the fireball and she's like, it's hot.
Which, fucking gross. If anyone offers me a fucking fireball or Red Hots or tamales or whatever, I hate you.
Okay, it's good in shot form. Say that.
No, it is not. I don't want any fireball at all.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
I don't like fake cinnamon.
Coming back to your thing about therapy, though, I would cue you, if you haven't seen it, to the first season, at least, of Big Little Lies, which is also white lady problems. Mm-hmm. But the therapy sessions with Nicole Kidman and her therapist, who's a woman, I can't remember her name.
Robin Weigert.
Yes. Amazing. I love those scenes so much.
I only know her name because when I was watching Deadwood recently, she's Calamity Jane in Deadwood. And
she's, I mean, there's a character actress who should be fucking everywhere because she's amazing.
Agreed. But yeah, and then I like that. But yeah, I enjoy these scenes, and then we get more editing comedy with Well, what should I do? Should I go buy a Ouija board? Cut to her opening a Ouija board.
Yeah. Where did you get this?
Kmart.
I got it at the Kmart. Because that's where you fucking buy Ouija
elicited
boards.
such a laugh from me. If this is a serious movie, it's very somber. It's so many blues. It's just like, it's a very dreary, somber tone. But it makes those little moments of levity just stand out so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really that's what Jodie is bringing to this role. She's kind of a check where she is also supporting Claire, but she's also kind of pushing back and being like, shouldn't we be thinking about boys and glasses of white wine? So
apparently in this seance scene, though, in the original script, it ended with like something supernatural happening and Jodie running out screaming. They changed it to where it was not that, because they wanted the audience to keep doubting Michelle Pfeiffer's sanity.
Yeah, which is interesting because I feel like if you've watched enough horror films, if something supernatural is happening, it is literally always happening. Like, I never doubt a woman's sanity because it's always a woman.
Yeah, no, it's always a woman, usually a blonde woman. Can you imagine, though, like, what if it had been like, oh, she's just crazy going from empty nest syndrome? That's the movie.
I mean, shout out to, again, our Invisible Man on Patreon, where we had this conversation, like, would this have worked had it just been, she's a little bit mad? And the answer is no. No. It's so unsatisfying to think about.
I really hate, they were crazy the whole time. I hate that. I hate they were crazy the whole time, and I hate it was a dream the whole time. I really fucking hate it.
It's going to be a hard pass for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing happens. Jodie is just like, okay, this is fun. Girls'
Bye.
night. I'll see you later. I'm going to go fuck some college boys. Bye. And of course, immediately, bathtub fills back up. Words, on the mirror, and the letters MEF begin appearing ominously in Claire's solitaire game.
So this is one of those moments, though, where I was like, why doesn't she just write her name? But then after thinking about it, I was like, oh, because you can't write your name on those games. You have to do your initials.
I also wondered if it's kind of like, maybe she doesn't know who she's communicating with, so maybe she actually thinks she's terrorizing Norman throughout all of this.
I don't think so, because I think, okay, for me,
I guess the is like, you do actually know, bitch, you just forgotten.
Yes, that is what it is. And to me, though, the end goal is not only to make her know that Norman did this, but also to find her body, which is why for some reason we end up at the exact same point where her body was buried at the end of the movie.
Oh my god, I love that. We crashed off the road, but we ended up in the exact right spot.
Exact one. Another Psycho homage, though, with that car and the body in it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so obviously Claire's properly freaked out. She goes back to the lab, and Norman is like, hey, you're still insane. So he even has the audacity to ask if it's about him. Is it because I'm working long hours? Is it because
he's a narcissist?
Don't have Caitlin? Oh, you fucker.
Yeah, he's a narcissist. He's terrible. But again, at the time, I mean, I don't know, because I feel like I'm trying to think about, again, the first time you're watching this, maybe you're thinking she might be kind of nuts. So are you ever on Harrison Ford's side if you don't know he's the killer yet?
Probably, because the film has done the work to set it up that, yeah, Claire is going through a bit of a new situation with the loss of, well, not the loss of her daughter, but she doesn't have her daughter there to distract her, so she does have all this time to fill, and maybe she's filling it with stories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, this is why ladies need hobbies, and they need to be kept busy, because if not, they invent ghost stories.
Or they'll confront potential rape murderers in public.
Yeah, right. Which is exactly what Claire does. So she accuses Dr. Fuhr of killing his wife in the middle of a crowded arena. And then, of course, Miranda Otto appears and she's like, hey, honey, look at my hair. It's gorgeous. Oh, shit. What did I walk into?
So I know this is a common complaint with this movie because, yeah, basically at this point, I mean, I'm glad that we at least get the scene where Miranda Otto comes over and they have coffee together and they talk. Mm-hmm. But it's still like, girl, like, it seemed, because the explanation also isn't that clear. She says something along the lines of, like, have you ever, like, loved someone or wanted someone so much and, like, you felt like you might, like, die without them or something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's like an obsessive love. It's so passionate and intense, and you're thinking, oh, okay, I guess that's great. It, like, in a way, it's positioned as, oh, hey, Claire, this is everything you don't have with your husband. But on the other hand, it's also, But remember at the opening when it was like verging on abusive behavior and really toxic also? That's not okay.
I think for me, it's the whenever she leaves and she goes, oh, he's coming, he's here, and then she runs away. Okay, I'm like, girl, that reads like he is beating you up and you can't be out of the house.
Yeah. And maybe it's because this is filtered through Claire's perspective. Like, I'm literally watching this relationship through a peephole in the fence. But the film doesn't paint it that way. I now 100% read this as Miss Fuhrer is going to be murdered by her husband later. And that is the sequel to this movie.
That would be awesome. Except, well, we'll get to that. There's one part in this movie where I'm like, that is fucking tasteless and you are terrible people.
Oh, okay. Well, I look forward to that moment.
It's coming up soon, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
But basically, they're done. Like, this subplot of the movie is gone.
Yes. Goodbye, the Fuhrers. We'll see you briefly in the next scene, and then you're done.
Okay, well, just so you know, that's the scene I'm talking about. When he feigns choking her at the party, I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that is so rude.
Yeah, like, we're all just acknowledging that you've maybe had a psychotic break, so I'm going to play that up in a crowded party.
So, from a structural standpoint, though, I still think you need this because technically, yes, you could cut out the entire Fuhrer thing. Cut out 30-ish minutes of this movie and just make it be about, we're jumping in with the affair.
Mm-hmm.
I like it, though. I kind of like that it comes to nothing. And I think if I wasn't as compelled by the performances, maybe I wouldn't be as into it. But I kind of like that it's like, oh, you thought this was a thing? Psych, it's not. And because it's intentional, it doesn't bother me.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, the whole film is predicated on this series of red herrings. So, I mean, I imagine that some people, when they watch it, they just feel like it takes up too much. Like, maybe if it was just a little bit shorter, it'd be okay. But I'm actually fully in agreement with you. I do think that we need this because part of what this film is doing is it's trying to toe the line between, is it a real life drama with, murderous stakes, or is it a supernatural? And really, the end of the film proves it's both. Well,
and that's kind of... Actually, no, that's a really good point. So it's not really just the plot where we're trying to guess what's happening. We're also trying to guess the genre of film we're watching, which I also think is really... that's part of the fun of this movie for me.
And that's why the marketing really let it down, because it just 100% goes in on, like, nope, it's an extramarital affair, and there's maybe some ghosts.
Yeah. which is what it is.
way to distill it down.
But we don't get a lot of downtime though between, oh cool, everything's fine, to, oh yeah, remember when you were at the party last year and you like went nuts?
Yeah, so that's literally what this whole scene is about. Hey, you've repressed these memories. Why have I repressed them? And that's immediately followed by the pitcher breaking in Norman's office, and then she discovers this news story about a missing woman. So we put the Fuhrers to bed, and literally 2 scenes later, here's a new mystery. This missing woman, Madison Elizabeth Frank, played by Amber Valletta.
And the the computer technology. Ladies and gentlemen, when this photo appears and you have to, it slowly unblurs, that's how we had to watch porn, or I'm sorry, not even watch porn, look at pictures of porn in 2000.
Pixelated frame by frame, slowly, like, depending on the speed of your router.
I do think, because I think the intention here is you're supposed to be like, oh, it's going to be like Michelle Pfeiffer, maybe, but I do think that the suspense of, like, waiting to see what this woman looks like, I like that they use, like, shitty computer technology to build suspense to this reveal of her face.
Mm-hmm. And when you see the face, you immediately think, oh shit, that girl looks like Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, also adds another layer to Ford's character, right? He has a type, and it's really gross. Not his type, but that he, like, goes after women that have this very pointy bone structure in their face.
Yeah, watch out, Maleficent. You're next.
Oh, man.
She's too brunette, but yeah, those cheekbones, he'd be after them.
Blonde, bony heads. That's the subtitle for this episode.
Oh my god. So she, of course, goes to Norman because at every stage she is kind of checking to see whether or not she has gone off the deep end. And as always, he dismisses her. But in this case, she refuses to let it go. So she seeks out Madison's mother, played by Nicole mercurial.
Which, because we just watched I Know What You Did Last Summer, this just reminds me of the Anne Heche scene in I Know You Did Last Summer, except I do kind of like that the mom is very receptive of her and not like, get out of my house.
Yeah, I originally had in my notes that she's presented as a bit of a crazy cat lady, but then I realized that was actually just classist of me, because she's obviously from a lower income
she's poor.
status. She's poor. The house ain't grand.
Ugh, she's just upper middle class. Ugh.
But I mean, it's a pretty noticeable distinction, because all of the other environments that Claire enters in this film is bougie upper class. So when she comes here, it's like, okay, this is a girl who had lots to lose, which is maybe why the affair began. So while she's in the house, Claire steals a lock of hair, which is also gross. Like,
very gross.
Don't be stealing missing women's hair.
Like, regardless of whether you think you have a ghost in your house, like, yeah, it's a little fucked up.
It's
Claire.
not okay. This would get you a repeat visit back to Dr. Drayton's.
Is Michelle Pfeiffer in every single scene of this movie? Like, I'm trying to think of a scene where she's not present.
There are some scenes with Harrison Ford exclusively later.
Okay.
So she uses the hair to perform another spell/seance, and then when Norman gets home, Claire is dressed a little bit differently. So Trace, I tried to cue you that you should keep an eye out for the wardrobes, but it's not your forte. So I'll briefly walk you through it. It's a very simple. Claire only wears white and cream colored outfits throughout the film, and then as the possession begins to take hold, she begins to wear increasingly more gray or sort of like darker colors. And then, of course, this red dress is the centerpiece. So when she's been fully taken over, when she is aggressively sexual, this is no longer Claire. This is meant to be, what's her face? Madison.
M-E-F. It's meth.
M-E-F. Meth.
That makes sense. I get that. So, okay. This is a question I have, though, with the ghost plan. She has control of a body. She has a voice now.
Maybe pick up the phone and call the police.
Like, I guess maybe it's because she knows she needs proof. Like, she can't just say, "Oh, he did this." But she could also be like in the mirror. Why write when she can just put my body's in the car and the river?
Or Norman killed me.
Yeah, exactly, right? I do like the reveal, because when she looks in the mirror and you see Michelle Pfeiffer standing there in the rain, and that's, of course, a flashback in the mirror to her catching them. That's really, really cool.
I remember I had a big disconnect the first time I saw this. I was like, wait, she has a double?
Well, I thought it was supposed to be Michelle Pfeiffer's, astral form watching this woman take over her body, but...
Okay.
But it's actually it is a flashback. It's basically Madison remembering Claire catching them in the act.
Yeah, or Claire putting herself into that position because she's both living it as she's also flashing back and seeing it through her own eyes.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
Is this the iconic line you wanted to repeat?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because all I think about is Scary Movie 2 when I hear this line.
No. So, of course, Claire, as Madison, is straddling Norman, and she goes, I think she's starting to suspect something. And he says, who? And she says, your wife.
A, in every single trailer.
Yes, of course.
B, though, and this is kind of why the casting of Valletta works for me. And I had to pause it to look, and I took a picture of it.
I had never noticed it until you posted it.
I'd never noticed it. So basically, so she comes down, and she passes... Actually, she doesn't even pass through a shadow. She just comes down, and as she does, her face morphs into Valletta's face, using what I presume is early CGI. Mm-hmm. But it's so subtle, and they have such similar bone structure in their face, that you really... I have never noticed it. But it's flat out fucking Valletta's face on top of Pfeiffer's in this reveal.
Yeah, the bigger, more obvious one to notice is that Michelle Pfeiffer's eye color also changes. Yeah. So it changes to green whenever she is under the spell of Madison. But in this case, it is a subtle technique, and it is really effective.
Well, because it's uncanny, right? And that's what makes it so creepy. It's it's there's something off, and you can't quite pinpoint it. But I'm telling you right now, when I paused it, I pinpointed the fuck out of it.
Yeah, you did. You pinpointed the fuck out of it.
I took a lot of screenshots of things this week that I have noticed in films.
I mean, fair. This is what we do. This is dedication to the craft.
Mm-hmm. And it is at this point that we also get our film's one use of fuck.
Yeah. So this is when Claire kind of lays it out on the table. She remembers things. So 1 year before, Claire discovered that Norman had an affair with Madison, and that's why she ended up having a car accident, because she was fleeing the house in the rain. So in real time, Claire has run to Jodie's house, and at this point, Jodie reveals herself to not be the best of friends, because she confirms that she knew about the affair, because she saw them canoodling in an antiquing town, and she said nothing because Norman seemed so desperate not to lose Claire after the accident.
You know, I see where you're coming from with this. I like that they give Jodie this monologue, and it's delivered very well by Scarwid.
Which is good, because it's her final scene in the movie, and Jodie's never heard from again.
I know, I hate that we... Because this is about... I think it's like about the 70-minute mark, so we have about 50 minutes left in this movie.
Oh my god.
And I don't know, I kind of get it. I kind of get it a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, it's one of those things. I mean, I will confess I don't handle infidelity well in films, because I had a very bad experience with being cheated on, so
right.
I don't have a lot of sympathy for cheaters, and also for friends who know about cheating, so it just rubs me a little bit of the wrong way. But you can see in the way that Jodie is telling Claire that she thought she was protecting her, and that she really did think that Norman was remorseful.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I also had experiences with cheating, and I do think it's always situational, like specific.
Oh, yes.
But yes, just blindly, yeah. Like, I mean, if you're a good friend, you shouldn't have to worry about hurting your friend about being the messenger. Even though they'll probably get mad at you first because
100%.
you're the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
But you should probably still tell people. But this does, again, this makes you want more from this character, and we just don't get that.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is nobody's film except Claire's and maybe Norman's.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the fact that you had to ask me, like, oh, is Michelle Pfeiffer in every single scene of this film? It's like, it's her film.
Hell, she works it. This is a movie where you're like, oh, this is why she's a star.
Yeah, because she owns the screen. Like, she makes Claire... She goes to so many different places with this character, and then you have to tap on top of that she's also playing possessed in half of these scenes.
Well, and so, hey, I'm trying to think of a genre film that she's done, because I think at least at this point, this is the first one she had done. Apparently, she had a really difficult time in the early days of shooting because she wasn't used to all of the tech around her. Like,
right.
she, they had a lot of cameras and like different machines to hold the camera so that Zemeckis could make all of his, fun Hitchcockian camera tricks work. And she was very put off by it, and Zemeckis admits as much in the commentary, and he's just like, yeah, but after a couple of days she got used to it. And I'm like, did she, or was she just professional?
She said, yes, I signed on for this role, and it's going to pay for my second house in Vermont. No, I mean, she's very clearly a trooper for what she goes through in the climax.
It's real fun.
So the next day, she goes back home because Norman has nearly electrocuted himself in the bath, and I'm kind of surprised anybody fell for this trick, because it is bullshit.
I fell for it!
Well, you're a big dum-dum then.
Also, I'm sorry, really quick though, refrigerator scare earlier in the scene too when she's possessed.
Refrigerator scare?
Yeah, when he opens the refrigerator door and he gets an apple and then he closes it and boom, she's right there.
Right, okay. And then she, just jams it into his mouth. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I've never had a sexual fantasy about sticking something in Harrison Ford's mouth before.
No, I actually like this little bit of diversion, but is this the part of the film where you're like, it kind of slows down for you because we have to waste time, worrying about this?
A little bit. And this is also the point where Claire actually takes a bit of a back seat. So she comes back, and he once again tries to clarify, I tried to end the affair. She became unstable. She threatened to kill you or herself. And then she goes and takes a nap. And then this is where we get Norman investigating exorcisms. And then she throws herself off the dock.
I think it's... I understand where you're coming from, but I think it's necessary because I think by this point people are like, well, what does the husband think of all this? Like, what? I think watching him researching exorcism is at least showing, oh, he's at least starting to believe her. Now, of course, we think it's because he's trying to like understand her side of it, but what he's really doing is like, oh, like,
wait, is this shit real?
Yeah, exactly. Like, am I gonna get caught here?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Because, of course, as soon as he rescues her in the water, at which point we very quickly see the box, but we won't know really what it is until later. But he rescues her, sees that lock of hair, and the very next shot is him lighting it up in the fireplace.
Yes. Oh, yeah, which I love. Because, again, when you know he's the killer, it's like, oh, dude. No, but again, you have Michelle Pfeiffer also telling the audience, she's dead, and now she's trying to hurt you. So now we've gone from, oh, it's a ghost trying to, like, fuck with Pfeiffer, to, like, oh, she's now a malicious spirit coming to kill him for breaking up with her or something, and making her commit suicide. And does this reveal work for you? I mean, again, I'm like, cool, this is where we're going now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's been so many indications that there is an actual murder. So the minute that the Fuhrer stuff is gone, and we haven't actually addressed it, but Miranda Otto also could be a bit of a ringer for both of these other two actresses. So like there are a bunch of blonde ladies in danger in this movie.
She's a redhead though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you think about like Cloudy Water, she could pass
for sure.
I'm just thinking of the early scenes where we're seeing glimpses of Valletta underwater, and it could be Miranda Otto, because we're not seeing a clear enough picture. I
do love this. So yeah, it's like they come in and we get the poltergeist, like this house is clean moment where Michelle Pfeiffer's like, she's gone. And I caught this shit.
I literally wrote in my notes, so the threat is over. Because at this point they take a fucking trip to Adavant.
Well, but hey, this is the 90-minute mark of the movie, so this could be the end of a movie. Like, this could be it. And I can just see people, like, I can see all these old people, like, in the theater, like, getting their stuff together, like, getting ready to go. And it's like, oh, wait, psych, there's 40 more minutes left in this movie.
Oh, Shirley, this was lovely. Would you like a word this as we exit the theater? Oh,
Ethel.
Oh, the credits haven't rolled yet, darling. I guess we have to stick around a little longer. It's probably a coda.
I'm always a sucker for that in horror films, though, when it's like you think it's over and like the film just keeps going and you're like, wait, something's not right here because the movie isn't over.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, just let me reposition my butt's a little numb.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes, and the funny thing is Claire is the one who pronounces, like, okay, this house is clean.
And she doesn't know!
She says, let's go to Adavant because I still have questions. And the funny thing is like, there's virtually no time spent at Adavant. It's like she gets out of the car, she looks at the place where Jody said she saw them eating, and literally right next door is this place that has magical key boxes that just happen to be the key. And
it's a really shitty box maker because apparently all these boxes have the same lock and all the keys are the same.
I guess so. Yeah, once you discover a model that looks great and works, you just stick with it.
But you can still change the mechanics of the interior of the lock.
No.
Too much work.
So she, of course, goes home. She pretends like everything's fine. And then she goes into the water and recovers that box.
And this is our protracted finale, y'all.
Here we go. We're getting into it. How long have we been talking about this movie now? Cue that gif of the old lady from Titanic. It's been 8 hours.
Ooh, oh my god, you're giving people a clue as to what we're talking about next week, because she's in our movie.
Is she?
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited.
Stay tuned, y'all.
Can't remember what we're talking about. Okay, so shocker. Inside this box is Madison's locket. And Claire is very disturbed. So Norman just immediately comes up with a new fucking narrative.
It's story change like number 2 or 3, and it's like, at this point, the movie tries to do a little bit for, because I actually love the eventual reveal, but yeah, I am curious, listeners, like if you've never seen this movie before, if you remember watching it the first time, like at this point, were you like, come on, bitch, like he's a murderer.
I was definitely getting there, but I remember still at this point, I'm like, no, it kind of seems plausible.
Because it's Ford.
Well, yeah, because it's Ford, and because he seems pretty genuine. Like, his explanation is that Madison killed herself in their house, and she was going to pin it on them. And 2000s me was like, yeah, that does sound like something that a lover would do to get back at her married husband. And then 2020 me is like, oh, okay, this is some dude mansplaining how women ruin their lives.
Well, and you can also tell, because it's really funny because he turns on the waterworks, because it's like, this is his last resort. Like, he has no cards left to play.
He's got the last one here, that's it.
But yeah, then she's like, no, fucking call. That girl must be brought up.
Yes. She's using a little bit of Stardust in there.
Oh, yes! Oh, fuck, I love that movie.
I love that movie. My husband, who loves everything magic, does not like it.
That makes no sense. That movie is, like, really, really good.
That movie is perfection. I love it.
And she's great as the fucking evil queen, or evil sorceress, or whatever.
Yep. Maybe she'll secretly show up in The Witches.
Oh my god! I mean, I'm excited for Anne Hathaway in that movie. I think she'll be great because I love seeing Anne Hathaway be like kind of bitchy. But yes.
I mean, there's roles for older women in that film.
There certainly are.
Okay, yeah. So Claire is like, "Bring this lady up," and Norman's like, "Cool, let me just call the police." And then the movie ends. That's it, everybody.
Wouldn't that suck?
About Withers. I'm still parched. I've been sitting in this theater for 84 years.
I have to pee so bad.
Oh shit, wait. Norman lied. We've still got 30 minutes left.
Okay.
So she discovers that he did not call 911. He called 411, and then he's drugged her.
But this again. So we're getting the typical horror movie territory, though. It's like the camera goes down. We see it's 411. The camera comes up, and he is fucking right behind her. Cue music.
Yep. Yeah. And I love that he just drugs her, and then he's so confident that he knows he can just let her go. She'll go down the stairs, she'll crawl along the floor. He's fine. He doesn't have to worry about her.
His switch to like, oh, I guess I have to kill her now. We don't really get to see much of Pfeiffer's like again, this is therapy for her. She's going to be going back to Joe Morton after this movie. But,
oh yeah, Dr. Drayton, hello, everything. Oh god,
it's just straight people. All straight people are like this. But can you imagine like just feel like knowing, oh, my husband just on a whim, like he's like, oh, I got to kill her. Like I can't talk her out of it, so I'm going to kill her instead.
It's not even I'm going to try to rationalize what I did, or I'm going to try to explain it, or I'm going to go on the run. No, it's just immediate. Okay, I got to kill you now.
And this is when we get our first of many camera tricks.
Yeah, it's a real good one. I love a glass floor.
I remember watching this and being like, this is fucking awesome. Yeah, so like she passes out on the floor in like the foyer. The camera like rotates under her to where, yeah, we're just under her on the floor. They CGI'd the floor from above because it's just a glass floor. Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, and honestly, that CGI couldn't tell.
No, even for 2000, like you would expect this to look like a fucking cartoon floor. I don't know what that would look like, but there you go.
It looks like Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
But I think that's Zemeckis though. He's like, look, we can't just use a bunch of CGI in this movie because it's gonna look like shit. So we have to use it sparingly and well.
Well, and let's use what the camera can do as well, right?
Yeah,
because I think that's the issue that people have with CGI is that people just throw it at the screen as opposed to using it to complement what you can do, like the in-camera tricks and the way you move the camera. Direction. I'm not going to shit on modern movies.
Say what you will about his films. I mean, again, I think from this point and before, Zemeckis has done like almost perfect films front and center. I have different opinions about his more recent films, but
I don't know. I'm having a lot of flashbacks. Like we just talked about Arachnophobia last month, and we talked about how good the direction and the practical effects are in that, and how it contributes to making that film a classic. And people may not love the lengthy narrative in What Lies Beneath, but like the direction in this film and the way that they use the FX are exceptional.
That's honestly one thing about doing like not only this podcast but just like doing film criticism is like it's easier to notice those things now for me. And even if like maybe the narrative isn't compelling me completely, I'll find something else that is compelling me. And that's if I give something a 1 star, then there's nothing compelling me.
Ooh. Okay, so she is paralyzed. He's going to murder her. He chooses to do this in the cruelest way possible. So
It's
he
bad.
dumps her in the bathtub, and he turns on the water, and I guess he's just going to make it look like she died by suicide here. I'm not sure what his plan exactly is.
This is also the first of our, not first, but like this is another really cool camera trick where it's one shot as he carries her into the bathroom, and the camera goes like over the bathtub and like flips to the other side as he puts her in. And then from this moment on, the camera never leaves the bathtub. Everything here is a reverse shot from Michelle Pfeiffer's point of view.
Yeah, and it's exceptional. Like, I remember nearly having a panic attack in the theater watching as the water just slowly creeps up towards her face.
Masterful. Like, it's such... I mean, I remember seeing this in theaters and being like, oh my god, oh my god.
Like, when you say this movie, people say the line from the trailer, your wife, and then they think of this scene. Like, and the thing that I love the most about it is that what is happening? We are literally watching a woman stationary in a bathtub with water.
And that's all it is. And this is the twist of the knife I was talking about, though, because the dog comes up and he looks at Michelle Pfeiffer, and we see, again, we're seeing it from her POV, then we just see her looking. And yeah, Harrison Ford's like, oh, hey, Cooper, go away. And it's just like, oh, the dog can't help you, lady. Like, no, you're still going to die, and this dog's never going to see you again.
Yeah. That dog doesn't know any better. He's just like, hey, where's my favorite toys? It's still at the end of the dock with the dead lady. But fate is kind of on Claire's side, so Norman recognizes something odd around her neck, so he props her forward, and he sees that it is Madison's necklace, and then when he goes to drop her back, suddenly it's Madison and not Claire that he's holding.
But her blue corpse, and I mean, what do you think of this scare?
I think it's fine. I think it's effective, but I don't jump.
I jump out of my seat every time. It's so the visual itself is haunting, and it's CGI. I kind of wish they would have just done like makeup on her, but whatever. But I love it.
I mean, it's unexpected. Like, I certainly didn't expect that when he starts to put her back down, so it works in that regard for me.
I just remember jumping out of my seat in theater seeing this. Nostalgia factor, of course, but
sure. I think for me, like, given the option of that kind of jump scare versus the skin-crawling dread of watching the water go over Michelle Pfeiffer's nose as she, like, tries to blow air out because you can realize she's panicking, give me the water.
And this is the one time the camera leaves the bathtub, because we get the one shot of Ford's head hitting the sink, which, oof.
Looks great. Yeah, he hits the mirror and then the sink, and then he's down for the count.
Yes.
Initially.
And then we're back in the tub, and the camera again is staying there. So that's what I love too. We get another scare with his bloody hand coming up, and then he reaches like he's gonna strangle her.
Yeah.
And then he falls. And again, we're now for the next 5 minutes, we're just with her in this tub, and we don't get to see what Ford is doing because the camera is not letting us.
Again, like, such a smart creative decision because we followed Claire through all of this. She is our protagonist. She's in almost every scene of this film. It makes sense for us to stay with her in this moment of danger. I don't need to see him crawling down the stairs and leaving bloody handprints everywhere. It's more impactful to have to stay with Claire. And because I'm envisioning, what am I doing if I'm her? And I'm freaking out.
Well, that's why, though, because it ups the suspense of when she finally gets out, because we don't know where he is. And that's it's such a slashery thing, too. I also, he doesn't really get a full-blown villain monologue before this happens, but I do and this is why I don't mind the fake electrocution scene. I love his delivery of, I almost froze to death laying here wet, naked, pretending to be electrocuted. Like, it's just like, that's when you're like, oh, fuck.
It's also, like, if you think about it, he foreshadowed what he was going to do with her. Like, he role-played, like, okay, I could do something in the tub, and this'll work.
Yeah.
So she eventually recovers enough mobility to drain the tub and get out of it. In the process, she does her psycho homage.
Yes, pulling the shower curtain off the rod, or off the rings, or whatever.
Yeah, which of course, back in 2000, I did not catch. I was just like,
Did not
oh,
know.
that looked painful.
Not at all.
And then she's like on a mission. She's got to find this phone, and also she's got to figure out where Norman is. So she grabs a piece of the broken mirror, and she's looking for that phone. She's tracking the blood all the way down the stairs, and of course, his seemingly dead body is lying on top of the phone.
What scene did this remind you of?
So I know what you're thinking of, and I don't entirely agree, but I will give it to you.
Okay, I mean it's Scream 2 when they're crawling over the killer in the cop car, but no, he is maybe unconscious on the floor, and she has to like shimmy by him, and then also he's laying on top of the phone, so she has to pull it out. But I will tell you that this got a big jump out of my audience too whenever we saw it in theaters, and. Right. It's like, yeah, you see his bloody hand, and he snorts, and his hand twitches.
Well, and she even knocks something off the ledge that breaks, and it scares herself, and then she turns back, and more or less at this point, she says, you know what, fuck this, it's not worth it, so she decides she's going to grab the cell and the keys and book it out of there. Another
glass floor moment, though, because we see from under the floor, she grabs the keys, and then we get that great shot, and it's. I feel like I've seen it plenty of times. Like, it's not like Zemeckis invented this shot, but as she's running out from behind, like, the camera's right in Ford's face, and we see his eye open up as she runs out.
Yeah, it's a good deep focus shot. And then I think my favorite, I don't know how difficult it is to set up, but I think it's just so clever, is where she gets into the car, she realizes she's got the wrong set of keys, she has to go and get in the truck with the boat hitch, but we see it all shot through the rear view mirror, so we see her, and then the door opens, and then we see him, and then we see her running to get into the truck, and it's all through the rear view mirror as the door is opening and closing, and it's genius.
It's great, and it's so suspenseful. This is also when Alan Silvestri's score picks up, and it's very reminiscent of Psycho's theme, like the opening credits theme. It's the
I like it. It's
Love
good.
It.
I mean, it makes me wish I was watching Psycho, but fine, sure.
No, I know. But it works. It works. Again, this is like, the film is like, I mean, it's already ramping up, but this is like, cool, we're on a chase now. And
yeah, exactly.
Even this next reveal, like, it's so horror, it's so slashery, right? Of just like, oh, really he's in the back of the truck.
Oh, it's fucking the last scene of Urban Legend.
Yes! Oh my god! Except it's Harrison Ford.
Yeah. It's just Harrison Ford breaking through the window of the truck going, ding, ding, ding.
You killed her, didn't you? Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, I don't know, Natalie. I just dropped her body in the... lair.
Y'all, we've cracked it. Zemeckis, yeah, he's seen some Hitchcock, but he literally watched Urban Legend, saw the script, and was like, I can do that.
Yeah, Scream 2 and Urban Legend. He was a full-blown fan of the second cycle of slasher films.
He was. I love it. We're so
smart. Either that or we have a fixation.
No, that's not
okay, so she is speeding towards the bridge because, of course, we had Chekhov's cell phone earlier in the film that it only gets a signal at the midway point of the bridge. That is when he attacks, so he breaks through the glass divide between the back of the truck and her. They have a struggle because she, of course, hits the gas. They break through the barrier, and all of a sudden we're down at the boat dock where, Madison went into the water last year.
I do think the choreography of this is really cool. Like, it's really intense. Her reaction is like as the car starts flooding, like she is like going nuts.
So I think that's genuine Michelle Pfeiffer terror.
It is. At least that's what Zemeckis said. He's like, yeah, she already doesn't like water. She doesn't like being cold. She doesn't like being wet. And in this, she's both. And of course, like they filmed this, and in part of winter, and so the water's freezing. And it looks it.
Yeah.
But there's this really sinister moment where she's like, Norman, please don't do this. And he just like shushes
her head down.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
full villain mode, but it's so slight and just insidious. It's really grim.
It's wonderful. But at this point, yeah, the boat, some part of the boat, I don't know maybe the mast stick or something. Crashes.
Something sharp and some Final Destination 2 nonsense happens.
It really is. But yeah, it like crashes through the windshield, and of course it hits the exact spot on the trunk of Madison's car that allows it to open up.
Of course, yeah.
I don't mind any of this. I think this is all really fun.
I think at this point, if you're not on board with the supernatural shenanigans, it's like, all right, grab that Werther's and get the fuck out of the theater.
Yeah. I mean, again, did she have to stop right there? No, but she did, and it's just because plot.
Sure, yeah. Because you know what? It's a motherfucking movie, and just go with it.
Yeah.
So Madison's decomposing body floats up or swims up, and by the time she gets to them, she is actually fully restored. So she looks like Amber Valletta,
again,
model goddess. And she just grabs a hold of Norman, and he is so startled to see her that he lets go of Claire, and Claire's like, see you, fuckers.
Bye. Hey, I will say the head turn, because the head turn from Valletta's corpse earns a little music stinger. It's honestly, this is the point though where, because for some reason I thought when Ford was doing the research, I was okay, well maybe he does believe there's supernatural shit going on, but then there's a part in the bathtub where he's like, oh, well then I realized you believed it. This is the first time where he's like, oh, it's really happening. Mm-hmm. I almost wish that there was more of a reaction from him other than, his shocked look. Like, I wish that we could hear him say something.
Like a scream or something?
Yeah, just because I want him to suffer. Knowing he's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's something delicious about the fact that his foot is trapped, so he can't get out of there regardless. Like, he would have died there anyway, but Madison just, gives him a little squeeze of the wrist to make sure that he stays down there.
Yep. And we also, then she reverts back to a desiccated corpse, and it's pretty great. Yeah, it's a fitting end for this Harrison Ford douchebag character, and I mean, really that's it. We just have this fucking shot of her in the graveyard, and
what did you think of this final effect? I had never noticed that you can see Madison's face in the ground as the camera pulls up just before the credits roll, and I was like, why?
I looked for that. I saw like maybe a semblance of eyes, but like I didn't see her face. Like I didn't see her face in the snow. What?
Yeah.
I don't. You're gonna have to screenshot that for me. It's fine. Again, it's just one of those things. Again, there's no reason for this movie to go on any longer. But like, I would have loved to see more. I want to see Michelle Pfeiffer in therapy talking about this shit. I want to see her tell her daughter this shit.
That was my thing. I was like, this is your moment to have her flanked by Jodie and Caitlin.
Yes.
Even just to acknowledge, like, yeah, I'm visiting my adulteress who also saved my life with my two girlfriends because I don't trust men anymore.
Okay, wait. Alternate coda, and it's going to make the movie worse. But she's in the hospital. She's flanked, yes, by Jodie and Cyndi Lauper. And basically they leave and she's trying to get some sleep. And then we see like Norman's reflection in the mirror or something moves that's a Norman-y thing. Okay. And so it's like now his ghost is haunting her.
Oh, I thought you were going to suggest that he did manage to survive the car and then she had to paddle him.
No. like basically now she's being haunted by her ex-murderer's husband.
Yeah, no, okay. Thank you. Thank you, but no.
That again, cheap ploy. I like that we at least she ends this movie happy-ish.
Yeah. Well, and I like the fact that she kind of like the way that she treated Jodie when she learned that Jodie knew the truth. She has forgiven Madison, seemingly. Like, I like the fact that it doesn't end with her being like, well, that bitch shouldn't have slept with my husband and started all this.
Yeah.
Because apparently Michelle Pfeiffer is a Southern man at this point.
It's like they probably would have been really good twin-looking friends.
Oh my god, can you imagine them out at the bar scene? They'd be picking up dudes so bad.
Yeah, it's, oh man.
This is me and my sister, and Dee Dee's over in the corner like, I'm right here, you fuckers! Dee Dee, we love you. Make more movies. She's in some TV show coming up.
All right, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what lies beneath, Joe. Yeah. Final thoughts?
You know what? This movie still really works for me. I do think it's maybe a smidget too long, but I disagree with the people who think that the Fuhrer storyline doesn't work or that, yeah, like maybe the middle section could do with a bit of parsing down. But I think overall, this film still really works for me, and Michelle Pfeiffer is fucking amazing in it.
Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing. And, obviously, I mean, you've noticed that there wasn't really a lot of queer content in this film. We just really wanted to have a reason to worship Michelle Pfeiffer. And what better reason than the 20th anniversary of this film?
Exactly. You know what? Michelle Pfeiffer is queer horror.
She is queer content.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I was very surprised at how much I still enjoyed this film. I think it's a lot of fun, even though, like I said earlier, it's a slow burn. I'm never bored. I'm captivated by Michelle Pfeiffer this entire time. Mm-hmm. And the rewatch pays off just watching Ford act, knowing that he's the villain. It's just really fun to do.
That really pays off when you're looking for it in his performance. And honestly, this plays really well in 2020 when you're just thinking about how shitty men are.
Oh, it really does. I mean, it in that regard, it almost seems ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Because I'm honestly surprised that, because I think a lesser film would have made, it's the other woman bitch ghost who's like trying to get the man back, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
I really respect the film for that. I think it's great. And if y'all haven't seen it, well, sorry. But
if you haven't seen it, what the fuck are you doing?
Go watch it. But so I think that'll kind of wrap up for us. Before we announce what we're covering next week, if you'd like to stay in touch with us, you can like our Horror Queers Facebook page or join our Horror Queers Facebook group. Tweet us or follow us on Instagram at Horror Queers or email us at horrorqueers@gmail.com. If you have 2 seconds, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating or write a review. Head over to TeePublic, that's TEE Public for Horror Queers merch. And if you want even more content from us, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/horrorqueers, where you can sign up for exclusive bonus episodes. This month we are back to our regular Patreon format, which means we currently already have an audio commentary on I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, but we also have full-length episodes on Relic, which is a Sundance fave from earlier this year, and also The Beach House, which is a big festival favorite as well. Coming out soon, we'll also have a little shorter episode on Dave Franco's The Rental, which also stars Alison Brie and Lip from Shameless, because that's the only thing I know him as. Yeah. So if you want to hear our thoughts on all that stuff, then go subscribe to our Patreon today. Yeah. And Joe, I hope you remember what we're covering next week so you can tell everyone.
You know what? I looked it up while you were yammering on. So, this is exciting and daunting, Trace. We are taking the podcast back 88 years. Woo! So the furthest back we've ever gone, the oldest film we've ever covered. And of course, like a lot of films, we're late to the game. A lot of other queer horror podcasts have covered it, but we're going to dip our toe into the James Whale canon. So our big queer director from the yesteryears. We're going to check out The Old Dark House from 1932.
I'm really upset that it's not 84 years ago, because since Gloria Stewart is in this movie, that would have been really appropriate to promote with that gif.
God damn it. We needed to start this 4 years ago.
I agree. I'm really excited to cover this and finally watch it. I do feel like it's daunting because obviously it's just a seminal piece of horror cinema and also queerness. So I hope we can do it justice. I think we will. It is streaming on Amazon Prime, and it's like 77 minutes long, like all those movies in the 30s, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
So please visit us at the Old Dark House, everybody. But until then, we can cross out what lies beneath.
Yes, and cross out horror queers.
Disgusting Podcast Network, home of creepy, disturbing, and terrifying creepypastas, SCP archives, weekly full cast storytelling, horror queers, genre commentary from an LGBTQ perspective, and the Boo Crew for horror-centric interviews. Listen free wherever you stream audio and at bloodydisgusting.com/podcasts.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.